Hello, welcome to another nighttime edition of the Broken Meeple, and today we're back to some expansions for the next couple of reviews because, well, I like expansions. Expansions are great. You already like the game, so the expansion may disappoint at times, but usually it's going to make the game you like even better. In this case, expansions are nothing new. If you've heard of Smash Up in any way, shape or form, you know that this thing has had more expansions than you can ever hope to believe. It's ridiculous. And we've got the latest one here now, Big in Japan. I don't know the song, so I'm not really going to sing it for you. But this is blatantly, as you can see, this is a Japanese theme, partially anime, partially, kaiju, monsters, that kind of thing. Parodies of all those sort of Japanese shows and movies. And I have to admit, I've been looking forward to this one for quite some time because I think these factions will mix quite well with some of the older stuff in order to create some rather hilarious combinations. Now, just like all the other Smash Up games, this is basically a standalone thing, so it will come with 4 factions, it will come with some bases, and the components necessary to play the game if it was literally just 2 of you. Of course, you would need more than one set in order to play 3 or 4 player, but to be honest, Smash Up for me is predominantly 2 player, although I do enjoy it with 3, so that's not necessarily a problem, especially if you just want to test out the game. But let's face it, you've got so many expansions for this game now, you can pick up whatever set you like to test the game out. And to be honest, I kind of recommend you just pick up the original set anyway, because then you'll get a bit more variety in what it is you choose to do. So with this Smash Up expansion, we have 4 new factions to take, and we have the Magical Girls. So kind of think of those like crazy cat girls from various anime shows, that sort of thing. You have the Mega Troopers, so think Power Rangers ripoff. You have the Kaiju themselves, so think Godzilla. And you also have the Critter, the Critter Champions, I think, was it? No, the Itty Critters. Yeah, my mistake. Itty Critters are basically the Pokemon ripoffs. So they're all these little weird and wonderful creatures along with the various trainers, and it's all taking the mick out of Pokemon. So these are very popular IPs that these factions are ripping off. And it certainly allows for some good humour because the cards themselves are actually pretty funny this time round. I quite like the humour that has gone into this expansion in order to keep the theme alive with some of these, and also just to, give you a bit of a nostalgic kick with those various shows. The main new mechanic in this is the Titans. Each faction has a Titan, and it's quite really cool. It's printed on the back of the dividers. If you've seen the big geeky box, you know what I mean about those really cool plastic dividers. Seriously, why can't other games use these things? But the Titan is on the back of them. So you effectively take the divider out, and then when you need to play it by whatever card you happen to play at the time, then you just flip the divider open, and that's your Titan. And they represent like ginormous, minions that you can bring out onto the field. Now, when I say ginormous minions, I don't mean like something with like 12 power or anything silly like that. No, it gives you a really cool special ability that goes with the theme of the faction you're using. And they're not overpowered. I mean, you can deal with these things, so just because these 4 factions happen to have a Titan does not mean that suddenly all the old factions became underpowered. It's just the fact that the Titan keeps with the whole theme of them, and like I say, people can easily take them down or just get around them. Like I say, they just give you like an ability. They don't break the game, and they certainly don't give you 20 power just randomly on the base. But my favourite faction out of all 4 of these has to be the Kaiju faction. The Kaiju faction is basically all about their big Titan Gorgonzola or something. I always call them Gorgonzola for a laugh. But the most of them are, okay, we get our Titan out, it's all well and good. But these guys want that Titan out, because this Titan is what enables them to get more power on bases, to destroy other people's cards, etc. So they've got a lot of ways to bring him out. But it's basically a Godzilla parody. Who doesn't want to play Godzilla in Smash Up? I mean, that's just awesome. And in terms of what they combo with, well, they certainly like having, actions on bases, that kind of thing. So I'm sort of thinking that with the Kaiju, using somebody like Steampunk, who particularly like having actions on bases and keying off that, can work very well. And Steampunk Godzilla is probably, I'll bet, there's been a lot of Godzillas over the time, Mega Godzilla and Metal Godzilla or whatever. I'm pretty sure there isn't a Steampunk Godzilla. If there is, put it in the comments and show me a link, because that'll be hilarious. But I don't think that one's been done before. But I just love having that one Titan that I'm constantly bringing out, doing all the various voices of "Run, it's Godzilla, Godzilla." I like Godzilla. He's a cool character. I always like playing Gigazor from the King of Tokyo games because that's the closest I can get to Godzilla. The old films, the black and white movies, and that are so funny to watch just with the rubbish special effects and that. Shame the modern remake couldn't do any good, did it? Thank you. I paid to see Godzilla, not news reports about Godzilla, okay? You've then got the Itty Critters, the Pokemon ripoff. Most of these minions are pretty weak, but you can bring them out relatively quickly, and just like in Pokemon, you bring them out, they do their thing, and then they go back under your deck. Now, if you've got ways to bring out cheap minions quickly, these guys can get nasty. I'm thinking robots, for example. They're very good at bringing those low power minions out and really bumping them up. Zombies can work pretty well in the same regard. But another one that you might not have considered is the Grandmas. I think they were called the Grandmas from a previous set. Because they were all about drawing from the bottom of the deck. So if your weak minions are going to the bottom of the deck, that means the Grandmas can help you get them back even quicker. Thought of that? And to be honest, what is it? Grandma Itty Critters? Or Itty Critter Grandma? Itty Critter Grandma sounds better actually. But yeah, that's an interesting combo that I've yet to try that one. I've mostly used, if I've used Itty Critters, it's been just randomly with other ones. I did try it with robots, worked very well. But I've tried it with other ones as well. I think, what was the last one I used? Itty Critter. What was it? Oh yeah, Itty Critter Vampires. That was it. So it didn't work as well, but it was just amusing having the sort of like vampiric Bulbasaur effectively. So you just imagine that would be a whole different style of Pokemon, wouldn't it? So yeah, that faction's pretty cool as well. Then you've got probably I would say my least favourite of the four. Not because I think they're bad, just because it's not really my style. And that would be the Magical Girls. These ones are weird. There's all sorts of weird imagery on these cards. But they get more powerful by having lots of minions on bases. So they're all about basically spam a base with lots of minions. Well, we've kind of had that before, really. I mean, do you remember the Mythic Horses from the previous one? The My Little Pony ripoff? They had the exact same sort of thing. Lots of minions on a base, and they do better with them, the whole friendship thing. So naturally, the Magical Girls and Mythic Horses is a sick combination to use. But yeah, I thought we'd had that ability before, and they are slightly different in how they use their ability, so it's not like a complete clone of Mythic Horses, but I maybe would have liked something just a little bit more varied than that. But still, really cool to use them with certain other factions that are all about having lots of minions. Don't use them with anybody who's not got many minions, like princesses, for example. They just have a few level 5 ones. Doesn't quite work as well with them. They're much better to just say, ooh, you got lots of minions? Great, I want to join you. Then you should generally do quite well with them, and they're not that complex to learn either. Get a lot of minions on the base. What more do you need to know? And then finally, we have the Go-Go Mega Troopers. Yeah, the Power Rangers ripoff, and all the imagery is basically taking the mick out of all the different colour Rangers and the various bosses and Zords and everything. And was it Alpha 5, some really weird looking robot in this set. It's great to sort of see it happen. These ones are an interesting faction though. They do a lot of abilities that trigger when a base scores. So some will get power boosts, or some will be able to move, that kind of thing. But it's all based on when a base scores. So they're a really tricky one to sort of grasp, because you'll think, oh yeah, I can get this base, it'll be alright. And then it triggers, and then it scores. And then all of a sudden these Mega Troopers come out of nowhere and suddenly like, oh, okay, you're actually first place, or you've actually got to second, you just shoved him over from that base to this one, So there's a lot of cool abilities like that, and it makes them difficult to read, but also one of the more harder ones to play, because you've got to really time them right. But of course, why do you play the Mega Troopers? Because you want to summon the big Mega Bot. You want the giant Zord, and yes, you can get that in this game. Nothing major. It gives you +1 power for each minion there, so obviously the more stuff you've got there, the better. Could work with Magical Girls in that respect, and Mythic Horses and that sort of thing. But yeah, it's an easy Titan to use, and obviously everybody plays this faction purely to get that Megabot out. That's what seems to happen. But other factions could work well with them too. I'm thinking ninjas have some interesting abilities that trigger from scoring. Basically, they want to have maneuverability, I would probably think. So maybe pirates, that kind of thing. These ones have been a bit more tricky to get to combo well. Not saying they're bad. I would say out of the 4 factions in this set, Mega Troopers are probably my hardest one to get used to in terms of like doing well with them. Magical Girls is by far the easiest. I've had no trouble learning those ones. And the other 2, they're kind of on par with each other. I certainly just love playing Kaiju though, because I just want Godzilla, Godzilla Panda. Imagine that. So Smash Up Big in Japan. It's another cool set. It's not really one that I'm gonna hate, and although there have been ones that I have disliked in the past, I'm thinking, everybody pretty much agrees that Smash Up Obligatory Cthulhu set is probably the weakest one out of the entire range, and I think that as well. I rarely use those factions, but they're in the box, fills up the space, and I don't mind Smash Up Munchkin. I like the races that you can be, because they combo well with other things, be cleric magical girls, or elvish itty critters or something. You can get some humorous things from them, but the only annoying thing with that set is that you've got to have those monsters in, and then I've got to remember, oh yeah, how do monsters work? Let me just read the rules for them. And I sometimes hate it when you get too much extra stuff rule-wise when you add these things in. The Titans in this are pretty easy, because most of it's explained on the cards, really. The one that I mentioned a minute ago, Monsters, is not too difficult, but again, you play it so rarely, you kind of think, oh yeah, that's how it works. And then Cthulhu is pretty much like sometimes unbalances the game, because the Madness cards, you need to have at least 2 people, if not everybody, using a faction that uses Madness cards, otherwise it just gets out of hand. But Big in Japan is definitely one of my favourites I have come across. Certainly I think every faction in here is enjoyable, just maybe Magical Girls is not kind of my thing, but the other 3 factions, I have a blast playing them. I like the Mega Troopers, they're a bit more challenging, but, they're Power Ranger ripoffs. The Pokemon one is pretty thematic to how they work, and again, lots of cool parodies and imagery. And Kaiju, it's Godzilla. What more can I say? Love that faction. So we're talking 3 out of the 4 factions here that I love, and I'm fine with Magical Girls. I'm just not bowled over by them. Definitely one of the better sets, and I think if you've got any liking for this whole Japanese theme, then this is definitely one that is a must-buy for you if you're a Smash Up fan. Obviously, if you've never tried Smash Up before, go get the base set and see how you get on with that first. This is really for those who are into the game already, like me. I've got my giant Smash Up geeky box set down there. This is not going to suddenly bring you into Smash Up. It's not kind of like that. So strengths. What are we looking at? Strengths, it's very thematic set. It's based on intellectual properties that a lot of people know and love. So this is an easy one to get into. There's a lot of humour in this one, and again, the factions themselves are competitive along with other factions without being overpowered. Weaknesses, well, you're paying this sort of money for another 4 factions. I mean, how much money have you spent on the game by now if you're playing Smash Up? So it's another cost. You have to obviously learn an extra mechanic with these particular ones, so even if just one faction is being used in a 4-player game, you need to be aware of how Titans work, so obviously you need to just get past that tiny little hurdle in that sense. But otherwise, there isn't really a weakness I can think of on top of that, so this is definitely a recommended must-buy for a Smash Up fan. I've got it, I'm keeping it, and you don't need the box anymore. Over it goes. So that's all from me. If you like what you see, then please subscribe to the video or the podcast, and leave your comments below the video in that section. I'd like to engage with you guys and talk about Smash Up a bit more. What factions do you love? Which ones do you hate? What obscene combinations have you had? This is one that I always like to know from people. But like I say, whether you're punching somebody's little itty bitty critter in, just remember it's still only a game, no matter how hard you want to hit them. So see you next time, guys. Take care.